Welcome to Keno Nose Time, the podcast celebrating scent detection for fun. Join us for insights into building a connection in your team, tips for competency and success in competition, and to keep up to date with recent and upcoming scent work events here in New South Wales and around Australia. Danielle.
Hello.
How are we this holidays? Still January?
Yes, it is still. I think I am still in holiday mode, to be honest.
Yeah. It's sort of like planning mode, really.
Yes. Yeah. And I had a very funny trialing experience last week that made me think I was still in holiday mode for sure.
It sort of feels weird having trials in January, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How was your trialing experience?
It made me laugh, but it was terrible because it was an excellent ANKC container trial, which, I was feeling pretty okay with because Nettle likes containers, even with quite high value food distractors. She's normally pretty solid. But we walked in and I felt a bit off kilter. I think it was a nighttime trial. I don't do well at night. I'm like, this is not the time to be concentrating on anything. And then, I looked at the search. I'm like, okay, this is not what I was expecting. It was a smaller area. It was in a really large area. So I had in my head it was going to be this big area search, but it was quite small. And then as I was walking up to the start line, I just said, go. And she went and I'm like, what's going on? She sniffed the first box. She did a hook around to it as she walked past, which tends to be a bit of a change of behavior. But as she dismissed it and moved on to the next box, I just said alert. So that was clearly a brain malfunction on my part.
Okay.
Yes.
So Nettle didn't really do too many things wrong. She
was fine. It was all me. So that kind of brings us to what we wanted to talk about today, which is really talking about trial prep. Are you actually ready to trial? How do you kind of plan out what you're working towards across the year? That sort of stuff.
It's good to be in sort of that mode as well. Like, yeah. I think when you're coming up to trial, you want to have had some really good productive training sessions before you go up to a trial, so that you get all of those little things in the back of your mind as well. Yeah. And when you go on holidays and you come back from a holiday, it's sort of easy to just throw yourself in and then go, why did I do that?
Why did I do that? I know. And I had a really full-on week because my mum had been visiting from the UK, and just that day I'd actually driven into the airport, said goodbye to her. So it was very emotional. And also my golden retriever had like hemorrhagic diarrhea for 3 days just before that trial as well. So I really wasn't in the right headspace to trial.
Yeah, I think headspace I don't think we talk too much about headspace and trial, actually. And I think it's different for different levels. Like in regard to a nosework 3, I think your headspace is super important, like where you're at mentally on the day.
Yep.
Is really important. Where some of the lower levels you can probably get away with not being in the right headspace.
And I think that ties into how active you need to be in a search with your canine partner, because, in the earlier levels, your dog can do most of the work.
Yeah.
Whereas you do need to do more stuff when you're in nose.
In the higher levels, we have much more responsibility as the handler.
Yep.
Like it's not a matter of just following them around a search area. We actually have to be an active part of the team.
Yep.
Which takes brain power as well as, reading your dog and changes of behavior and knowing when they're communicating effectively. And
yeah, it's hard. And there's so much other stuff that goes into it, right? Because, you can just have performance anxiety, or you can it could be your first time trialing at that particular level, which puts a lot of stress on things. I have to say that as instructors, I think we have that little bit of extra pressure on ourselves, possibly because, we kind of have to be semi-decent a lot of the time because this is what we're instructing people to do, right? So yeah, headspace. Yeah.
I
So
think it depends on your dog as well, like,
yeah.
and where your dog is at. Like, I used to feel much more pressure trialing when Sarah was on like A game, when she was at that peak sort of trial age of about, 8 or 9. She's had all the experience. We'd learned all the things. I felt the most pressure then.
Mm.
Where now that she's older, I don't feel any pressure at all. I'm just really glad that she can, when she wants to play the game, she does. And I think that it's been an interesting change over time. I haven't felt pressure to trial for quite some time.
I'm super excited and interested to see how it feels for you with Flair. Because I'm usually so zen when I'm trialing. I was zen when I did stuff with Crosby. I'm zen when I do stuff with Rory. But I don't know, Nettle just I don't know if it's her energy or if it's that I feel like I have more expectations of her somehow. But
That's an
there
interesting.
there is a little bit more pressure when I go up to the start line with Nettle.
Well, and that's probably compounding factors, right? She's got more energy. She's much faster. That makes you move faster. It probably makes you have to think faster.
Yep.
And then you add on the expectation on top of the movement, I think that's compounding.
Yeah.
Because you get one of those things wrong and
yes.
It's like a Jenga tower.
I know. Which just tells me, I shouldn't really trial if my headspace isn't right, because I also think that it's not fair to your dog. Like that was a yucky experience for Nettle because she didn't get to search. I stuffed up, so she didn't get to search. And, I mean, she was okay. She's fine, but
you probably would have been a bit confused, but I think if you were only in there for that long, you probably wouldn't have done too much damage.
No, there was no damage, but it's confusing, and I don't want to deprive her of having her fun at playing her favorite game because I stuff up.
Yeah,
I don't want to be the cause of that.
That's true. Yeah, so I guess that leads us to what we are sort of talking about. This podcast was we are going to look ahead a little bit to 2025 and see what we've got, trial wise, and I guess in relation to our dogs, but for other people as well, setting some realistic goals for what you're going to be entering and planning. And I think we don't plan as a whole, as a community. I don't think we plan enough what our goal, plan the trial, make sure that we work up to it. What do you want your dog to have achieved in training, covered? What are they good at before we make that commitment to enter them into that trial? And I'm probably more referring to full day trials than, element trials or ANKC trials. But I also think that it's easy to get carried away with entering those smaller single trials because a couple of those searches one after the other is compounding your either positives or negatives too. So I think it probably can extend to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the first questions is, yes, you're eligible to enter this particular level, this particular trial, but are you actually ready? Or is it are you at a good point in your training journey for this particular type of experience?
Yeah, so I guess the two dogs that I have, like Sarah's obviously nosework 3, we will, if she's fit and happy and healthy, we will give one of those a go this year. But the two dogs that actively sort of participating in trialing that I have is Buddy and Flair. So I guess I might start with Flair, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's only just sort of gone on to Birch and been exposed to the other odors, but he's actively working on Birch at the moment. So for me, I think I would really like to enter him in some ORTs in the first half of the year. That would probably be the first goal. But I also want to make sure that one, he's strong on all of the odors with odor obedience wise, but that he can confidently run closed boxes in a variety of locations. I think that is really probably the main thing that I want to see him be able to do. I haven't really thought about final because he's super fast dog. I'm like, I don't even want to think about final responses or anything until he's at a further level trialing down the track.
Yep.
I would rather him just, changes of behavior and communication like that at Odor. And, you never know, because he's so fast, you never know what they develop with my not as fast timing. But that's probably the goal at the moment, is to just get him working on closed boxes in a variety of locations and really confident that he knows what he's looking for.
Yep.
That there's no question marks about whether white boxes pay. That's also really important to me, is that it's not the white boxes, it's the Odor.
Yep.
So
for people who may not understand what you mean by you're not interested in a final response and you're going off of change of behavior. So if you are entering him in an ORT in a few months' time, like, how do you expect him to look?
I would expect him to have a really good understanding of how to run a line of boxes and check for Odor.
Yep.
So I want him hitting the first box right through to the last box on that row. If Odor is available to him, I would hope that he would choose Odor over checking the boxes.
Yep.
That's what I want him to look like. So say there's two, and maybe we should explain what if anyone new that's listening, an ORT is an odor recognition test. And there's 12 boxes, usually in 2 rows of 6. And one of the boxes has the target odor in it. In this case, it would be birch for flare. So say if there's the 2 lines of boxes and the first line we run is blank and he catches odor from the second row, I would expect him to stop checking all the boxes and run towards that odor. In absence of that odor, I would expect him to thoroughly check every single box.
Yep.
And that's and so that running towards that other odor to me would be a change of behavior.
Yep.
And then when he gets to the odor box, I would expect him to possibly, look at the seams or have a little bit of a twist around to get more access to odor. And that would probably be enough for me to call it.
Yep. Because there's really 2 parts of that change of behavior, right? Like, there's the part where you see them locating, closing in, recognizing odor, and then there's their behavior when they get to source. And that's like that checking seams, more intensity, increased sniffing, or whatever it looks like.
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't be waiting for the communication.
No.
I'd be waiting for the decision that he's like, yeah, I found that alert. I found the thing. But yeah, that's what I would like to train, give him all of the building blocks to be able to do that in an ORT. And so to train that, I think, I'd still focus a lot on open boxes, lots of reinforcement at odor, and the odd search and closed boxes and leading up to the ORT, maybe in some different locations.
Yep.
So that would be my game plan for that. The ORT is in Albion Park on March 23 as a birch, anise and clove. And what else have we got ORT-wise? There is the birch ORT in Wangi Wangi on the 2nd of March.
Yep.
And then, yes, the ORTs, birch, anise and clove in Albion Park, March 23, and then anise and clove on the 6th of April. So, there's enough for 2 shots there.
There is enough. And I just want to add that I kind of like having the days where there are the 3 odors in one day, because it kind of gives your dog, who's a new dog to trialing, right? It kind of gives them the chance to have the experience of being in the car for a while, coming out, doing a search, going back to the car, settling, coming back out for another search. It's kind of a bit of a trial of what it would be like for a nosework 1.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think these are nicely spaced apart because if you
Yep.
wanted to do just one,
Yep.
do the birch, the March the 2nd, and then, whether you missed or didn't miss, you could do
Yep.
the other two March 23, and then you've always got the option of Anise and Clove on the 6th of April. So,
Yep.
so for anyone wanting to start trialing with ACSW, go sign up for a membership and then pop these dates into your calendar.
Yep.
So you've got some good opportunities for ORTs there.
And we'll also be doing a bunch of ORTs in June as well. So if you're just starting, you can work towards those dates.
Yeah, so after the April ones, we're holding a Birch ORT June 18, then an Anise June 25, and a Clove on July the 2nd. So they'll all be just one off. So actually, before July the 2nd, there's 3 opportunities for each ORT.
Yep.
So that's really good. I think that's good planning looking ahead for people that are interested in starting trialing.
Yep.
And okay, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Would you want all of your you say you've got brand new, for example, Flare.
Yeah.
Brand new Flare and Bug, brand new doggos to nosework, good foundations. Would you want them to have done all of their ORTs before you maybe thought about putting them in a nosework 1? For starters, you've got to have your birch to enter a nosework 1.
Yes.
But if they had their
yeah, I think for me, that would be my preference. Simply because it gives them, 3 little mini searches. It gives me enough of an idea of whether they're just kind of ready for a full day trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, going back to their odor obedience, right? It gives me a good understanding of, are they actually are they searching thoroughly? Are they identifying odor? Or are they just kind of swanning around and going, oh yeah, no, here's odor. It shows you, do they have search focus? I think ORTs are a great little first step in trialing.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can always maybe have a go at a level 1 element trial.
Yep.
If there are some available. There is one on the 13th of April at level 1 interiors.
Yep.
At Ian Park. And then there's a nosework one in Canberra on May the 4th.
Yeah.
But I think that does I agree with you. I think I would like my dog to have done all of their ORTs and just to have that competition experience with your dog.
Yeah.
It's not competition. It's just a recognition test. But
yeah,
it does give you a little bit more experience with that dog before you go into, commit to a full day trial.
But, I wouldn't say that it's totally necessary, right? So if, my dog maybe if my dog alerted on an adjacent box, or if I did a weird alert call or something that stuffed them up, that wouldn't necessarily prevent me. So if they miss their Anise or their Clove, for a reason that I can identify, I wouldn't necessarily say that they weren't ready for a nosework 1.
Yeah, and, sometimes it's just the weather.
Yes, exactly.
We've seen that before.
Yep.
Okay, and so that's Flare. I think that's my game plan for him is his ORTs, and then towards the end of the year, there is actually that doubleheader weekend, July 19. There's a nosework 1, and if we're training really well up until then, and he's done. He's done all the things that I'd like to see a dog do before entering a nosework 1, which I guess is probably something we could talk about too.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing all the different elements, being pretty confident on how to run a vehicle. I'd like to see all of that before we looked at entering a nosework 1. So there'd be a lot of work to do before that.
That's 6 months away. You got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. But I think that would be a realistic goal.
Yeah.
To put him in that nosework 1.
I have another question for you. What about ANKC novice?
Yeah. I think I'd be happy to enter him in some novice searches. Yeah, just to get some trialing experience and maybe just to see, because I do think I will have a few more nerves running Flare than with syrup for the same reasons that you probably have with nettle.
Yeah.
Just the speed will make the adrenaline go faster.
Yeah, for sure.
A wild ride.
It can feel like a literal, like it feels like you've got a Tasmanian devil sometimes.
Yes.
It's like a whirlwind of chaos.
Yeah, and try to decipher all of that body language because there's so much body language. You've just got to pick which ones belong to Odor and which ones don't.
Mm-hmm. And like sometimes when you see, like when you watch a nature documentary, you see seals like swimming around the water playing amongst seaweed. That's what it sometimes feels like when she's in Odor, right? She's like this little seals swimming around the Odor streams. It's super fun, but yeah, it can be stressful.
Yeah, it's not a relaxing it's not a relaxing experience, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think I think that it depends on what your trialing goals are, right? Because I'm kind of the same in that the ANKC trials, I kind of want them to help prep me for the ACSW trials, because that's my ultimate goal is to get nosework 3, nosework 3 elite summit. Like that's my training goal.
Yeah.
Would I like to at one point see nettle in an ultimate search? Yes, absolutely, in ANKC. But I think it's fine to have a preference, right, for where you prefer to trial. I really love the full 1-day trial. Like I love the feeling of being competent across a full day of searching. That's the main reason I love the ACSW trials.
Yeah,
because I think it's a real sense of achievement there.
I agree. And there is a real difference trial wise, I think, there. Being able to pull together, 6 searches at a nosework 3 of unknown hides, and just there is something that feels really, really good about that your dog has that clarity that you can consistently read that. I think that for me is really important, and that's why I love the ACSW structure of trialing.
Yeah.
I've also really enjoyed running Syrah in the ANKC trials. I don't feel as much pressure running in ANKC trials because they are the single searches. But, it is a little bit different.
It is. And I still have a lot of fun, and I have a lot of a sense of achievement in ANKC trials as well. It's not like I don't care about ANKC trials. But it can be hard as well when you have like just one search. I think when we were talking about headspace stuff, and I don't really do well with a lot of waiting. If I'm like down the run order and it's and I've been waiting 3 hours and haven't done anything, I think that doesn't put me at my optimum.
No, I'm more likely to enter an ACSW trial if there's multiple things that I can enter. At least, 2 searches. And I know you still have to do them back to back sometimes, but at least, you can get out of the car and yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny as well because when you're thinking about setting up your training goals and your progression and stuff, it can be a bit confusing comparing ANKC with ACSW because the levels don't really compare.
No.
So right now with Nettle, she's in ANKC Excellent and Nosework 3. Those are the levels she's in comparatively wise, but they're nothing like each other.
No, I find it interesting when people do compare them, to be honest, because your novice and nosework and level 1 element trials to me are fairly comparable.
Yes.
Or nosework 1, but advanced to me is also very similar to a nosework 1.
Yes, I think advanced is pretty much just like, and in fact, I had one ANKC judge say this in the briefing. It's kind of just like 2 novice searches smushed together, right?
Yeah, which is good because it is good practice and training for you before you do a nosework 2 to be able to get your dog to hit 2 odors and have that reward sequence and your timing and getting your dog prepped and ready to search for that next odor, I think is a skill that you want to have definitely before you enter a nosework 2. And starting your dog off right from that hide, not from, a couple of meters away or wherever, you want to start them searching again directly from the hide they've just found.
Yep.
And that's a skill that I think people really
And also,
need.
I mean, especially when you've got baby dogs, being able to dismiss the hide they've found and understand there is something else there to find and not keep coming back to the first hide is really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, advanced with those 2 hide searches, that is a cool progression of the skills.
Yes. Yeah. To then go to a nosework 2. And then I think excellent is probably a little bit of a step above, say, a nosework 2.
Yeah, it's funny because I think so for those who may not know, a nosework 2 is a day of 5 searches across all 4 elements. So you'll have one element done twice, and the searches themselves can be known. So you will know, and it will be in each individual search, it could be 1 to 3 hides. So you might have a single hide search, or it might be 2, or it might be 3. In ANKC Excellent, there's always 3 hides, apart from the interior where there's that split, could be 1, could be 2 in those 2 areas. So I think the difference with I think the difference between Excellent and Nosework 2 is that the searches themselves can be quite different, because if you're doing a single hide search in a Nosework 2, you can actually probably expect there to be some level of challenge in that single hide.
Yeah.
It could be an elevated hide. It could be, inaccessible. There's something that makes that one hide, worthy of being a Nosework 2 search.
Yeah, it's not just going to be a gift necessarily.
Exactly. But in Excellent, you're pretty much always dealing with converging odor. Like 3 hides in search area, you've always got a converging odor problem going on in most cases.
Which are also important skills to learn for Nosework 2 and Nosework 3, which I think after you're Excellent, Excellent is a really good way to prep for your Nosework 3.
Yep.
Distractors aside.
Yep.
And for anyone that doesn't know, there's no distractors in Nosework 3 apart from in the container element. And Nosework 3, you need to do 6 searches. And you have to be perfect. So for Nosework 2, those 5 searches, you have to be perfect for all 5 searches. For Nosework 3, you have to be perfect for all 6 searches to get your title outright. You can get a leg in Nosework 3.
Yeah.
But the Nosework 3 are all unknown.
Which is the scary part.
Yeah, that's the scary part. And I think Masters preps you for Nosework 3 as well.
Yes.
So
yeah, if you think about it, you've got the dog skills and the handler skills, right? So the dog skills are all of the more challenging hide locations, the odor puzzles, being able to smoothly move on from 1 to 2 to 3 hides. But then you've got the handler skill, which is not only reading your dog as they solve more complicated odor problems, right? But also understanding blank areas and knowing when to call finish.
Yes, that's the big one, I think.
Yeah.
Knowing when to call finish. We could talk for quite some time on that.
I know. So all of that is like where my head is at, right, with Nettle, because she has to muddle through all of this year. This is the fun year of getting through all of that. So my goal is, well, for her, it's Nosework 3, but Rory's still at Nosework 3 level. He still needs 2 more of his Nosework 3 titles to get to Elite. So he takes precedence with the Nosework 3 trials in Sydney, but it might mean that I do some more traveling with Nettle.
Yeah, Queensland has quite a few Nosework 3s this year. So,
and then it's because they are quite spread out and there aren't too many Nosework 3s. I can clearly see when I'm going to enter those, but then my dilemma comes from how much do I put her in ANKC, because I want her to have the experience of excellent searches for all the reasons we've just said. It's fun odor puzzles and all of that. But at what expense, right? Because you can really easily trial too much. You can really easily start to compound upon problems that arise in trials without going through proper training. Yes, go.
What do you think trialing too much looks like?
So I actually asked this question of Jean Richardson at her workshop last year, and I really liked her answer. So I'm just going to repeat it.
Okay.
But it's really the biggest part of trialing too much is when you start to lose trust in your dog.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good indicator, isn't it?
Yep.
And the funny thing is I have such a clear visual picture of what that looks like in teams. And even, when you run your own dog and you get either a bad call or you're a little bit too far away from the hide or you've misread it completely, the very next search you go into is affected by that call or that search. And I even saw that in the level 1 interior search we just did. Some of the teams called on the chair next to where the hide was because the odor was moving. None of the dogs were really wrong. The odor was moving.
Yep.
But everyone called it very fast and very confidently and very, like, this is awesome, and they got a no. And, it's just one of those days.
Yep.
Most of the teams got it, but there was quite a few teams that just, the dogs just got it wrong. Or not got it wrong, but you know what I mean? It was just not where the highest concentration of odor was. The very next search that they went into, the amount of time delay after their dogs had really communicated very well to the handler that this is where the odor is, I still know how to play this game, and the handlers didn't call it.
Yep.
And that just literally happened in the space of a minute. Yep. They went from confidently calling alert to I don't trust my dog anymore.
Oh, man. And it's no matter what you say to yourself, whenever you get a no, it has some sort of impact on you. It's a feedback system, right? And even just waiting your dog out that much more, does then your dog start to lose trust in you?
Yes, 100%.
You know what I mean? So then now you're both in this spiraling sort of
the beginning of the end. No, it's not. All is not lost. But
yeah, I mean, and you know what? It happens, right? So if it just happens in the space of, like you say, a couple of searches, that might not be the end of all things, and you might get back to your equilibrium at the next go. But you do run the risk of creating an issue that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and it compounds very quickly. You do it, you delay in one, and then you delay in the next one, and all of a sudden the dog is what the dog asks. What game were we actually playing again? Have I got it wrong?
Yeah,
that the reward timing is different. Your body language is different.
Because that's something I often see, right? Is dogs who are used, like, think of your newbie dog, and you're training up a newbie dog, and in training you've got really great timing. So your dog gets to odor and feels that intense joy because the reward is coming, and they have absolute faith that the reward is coming, right? But then you get to trialing and blind searches, and situations happen like you just explained, right? Maybe you got to know, maybe it was a fringe alert, maybe something happened, and then you're starting to delay. And so your dog is now alerting and feels that joy, but nothing happens. You don't call it, right? So then the dog goes, what does she want? I'll do it again. And then they get the reward. But you've actually just started to diminish your dog's joy in the game.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it becomes less about them worrying about, cool, I'm going to find the odor and have a big party at odor. And it becomes more about them going, what does my handler want?
Mm-hmm. Have I done something? My last answer to the question was incorrect.
Yes. Yeah.
So I need to adjust.
Yeah. And, and that can often get you through trials. right? You might end up, finding this way that works. Your dog tells you twice and you're like, cool, yeah, I'm sure it's here, and you call alert. But I think that does run the risk of, one, diminishing your dog's joy, and also two, kind of overlooking what this game was meant to be about.
Yeah, it's the lack of clarity too.
Yes.
For the dog.
Yes. And then the dog goes into a search area, maybe slower, or maybe, just kind of performing a task that they were told to do, and not
That's when we
running
start
around
to
having
see
fun.
the behavior come in.
Yep.
This is what I got rewarded for, because my handler waited until I did this thing. And then they wanted me to do the thing again.
Yep.
By using a cue such as, like, where is it? Show me.
Yep.
And I think that's where we can start to see how over trialing can affect the long-term, teamwork. And I think it doesn't just happen, like you said, in one search. It's these little things that happen over time, and they build up and they build up, and there's that lack of,
And like, no one's perfect, right? Like, there are definitely times when Nettle will alert and I'm like 80% sure, but you know what? There was just something that wasn't quite as clear to me in her behavior. Or she was so fast that I missed it. So me and her do have a communication where, if I'm just kind of hanging out going, what? She will, say, hey, it's here. Again, I'm going to tell you for the second time it's here. But I have to keep in mind that shouldn't be happening at every hide.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, it shouldn't be something that I fall into the trap of relying upon. Like, her telling me twice becomes something that makes me certain. I don't want to fall into that trap.
No, as much as possible. And in particular in training, you want that to be really clear for the dog.
Yep.
About what they're getting rewarded for.
Yes.
And re-hitting a hide.
So, so going back to our original sort of point, which was over trialing can create problems. So you need to, I don't want to make people not want to trial, because I think trialing is fun and it's a social event. And most of the time dogs are having fun because they're getting out and they're sniffing and they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But I do think people can be mindful of the habits that they're getting into in trialing versus training.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that training becomes something to fix problems in trials.
No,
you know
I think it's that getting that balance. You want to balance out your trials with your training.
Yes.
And making sure that if you do see something in a trial that, your dog is starting to, or, and we've talked about this before, one false alert on anything in my book, but and I'm not talking about proximity alert or anything like that. I mean, one false alert, and you go back to the drawing board and you work on that before you enter another trial.
Absolutely.
And you don't work on that by putting your dog in constant testing situations.
Yep.
You work on that differently with your instructor in training. But that anything like that, to me, so any different types of communication or any type of issues I see in a trial, that to me is I need to do more training before I enter the next one.
Yep.
It's not just keeping on doing the same thing.
Yep.
Because you're not going to fix problems by continuing to trial.
No.
You're only going to fix those problems by solving them in training and breaking down what went wrong.
Yep.
And the thing is, a lot of the time, nothing went wrong. Yep. So there's that aspect of it as well. But even if nothing went wrong, like with this chair hide I was talking about earlier, that wasn't any of the dog's fault. It wasn't even the handler's fault. It was just odor movement.
Yep.
But that still needs to be worked out in trial to, recreate that scenario and add some differences and changes to it, and make sure that the dog has a really good understanding of where odor is coming from in a situation like that. You can never recreate the same because, humidity, rain, all the things were happening that day that play havoc with odor.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, because we are instructors and judges, COs, whatever, we do see a lot, but I think like people who might be new to trialing may walk away from a search where they weren't successful and actually not be able to identify all of those things you just said.
Yeah, that's
right?
true too.
So that is a challenge because they
Yeah.
may not know why they got their note that note. They may not identify the skill that their dog is lacking.
All right. So for Nettle, your goals this year, for Nettle and Rory, your goals this year, were they both at Nosework 3 level?
Yep. So my goals for them to keep working on Nosework 3 with the aim of building skills that they need for elite and above. I definitely think converging Odor's close proximity stuff is they're getting pretty solid at. I think elevation continues to be something that they both need work on. I think Rory's gotten better at high hides, but Nettle still needs practice. But I think it's mostly my handling stuff as well.
From some of the recent trials, not directed at you or your handling or anyone in particular, but I do think it's a good opportunity with this hot weather to take advantage of some different weather conditions. Because odor behaves very differently in humidity and heat compared to, when we trial a lot in the cooler months. But we're still going to get days like, you might get a random hot, humid day. And I think maybe doing some single hide searches or two hide searches in this type of weather is a really good opportunity for training as well.
Yeah, I actually did that the other day. I set out like some multiple hide searches in like my garage in the morning where the sun isn't on it so much, and then I did it in the afternoon where it's super hot. So similar searches, but just different times of day. And I also set out like an interior search where I closed it up and just made it super hot for like 4 hours. So you can have lots of fun, I think, doing stuff like that.
Yeah, just because we're on holidays doesn't mean we're on holidays.
No. But I was thinking I also want to make sure, like, if I do something I haven't done a lot of with aged hides is a lot of disturbance, right? So if you're dog number 40 in a hot day, it's not just that the hides have been sitting there for 4 hours, it's that the hides have been sitting there for 4 hours, plus dogs and people have been moving around that area.
And doors are opening and closing.
So that's something I want to try and recreate somehow. I might have to recruit family members to put them on a timer every 15 minutes, go walk around that room or something.
Open the door and close it. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. But I like getting them prepped for that. I think something I want to work on, which is a bit adjacent to skills, is like endurance stamina.
Yeah.
Particularly like with elite and summit, right? You're looking at longer search times, larger search areas. So making sure that my dogs can sniff for that long.
Yeah, and I mean, we do train for that now as well. Like even the baby puppies, even Flair and Bug have, they're starting to work on their endurance for their elite and summit training.
Yep, they are.
And you can do that paired. You can do it in large areas. You can do, they're all little things that you want to be setting your dog up early on for, not down the track, but do it in such a way that motivation is maintained. And that
absolutely.
Really
and one thing I realize as well is that I often do large area searches. Rory's often does because he's so slow. Even at practice, he'll do like 5 to 8 minute searches. That's not foreign to him, but I actually think it's different when it's a blind search in a trial setting. I think that there's just it's way more draining for you and your dog for whatever reason.
Well, mentally for the handler, 100%.
Yeah, and I think that just goes down the line to your dog.
And until you get to the elite summit or ultimate, there's also not a huge amount of reinforcement necessarily available because it's 1 and 3 hides in a huge area. Where in training, we often do large areas, but with lots of hides and lots of reinforcement. So that's a good, you want them to work up to which is interesting. You want them to work up to blind, unknown, fewer hides. Where when we start out, we start out with one hide and work up that skill, and then it sort of goes in the reverse when you want to prep them for nosework 3 in masters and
just in case anyone doesn't know what elite and summit look like, which is fine because we've never held an elite or a summit trial here, go to the NACSW walkthrough website where you can just go through their database and have a look. The walkthroughs, the debriefs have so much information. You can look at summit trials, recent ones, and just have a look at what we're talking about. That might make more sense.
Yeah, they look like they're a lot of fun. I can't wait until we're holding those here. And we do have great hopes of holding one this year, an elite, or at least an elite select.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I should probably mention Buddy's goals really quickly. That's my mum's dog. And I think, with a little bit more work and we're back to sort of regular classes with him this term, he might be eligible to, well, he's eligible, but whether we should or not, enter him in a nosework too.
So we had a weird situation for the final term last year where Buddy was in class with me without you.
Yeah.
And so we were throwing lots of, I was setting some really quite challenging odor puzzles for all the dogs in that class. And he was amazing. He is more than ready for nosework too. He's more than ready for nosework too.
Yeah, I think it would be a fun day. And once again, I think because he's not my dog and he only does training in classes, is that I don't feel the expectation with Buddy.
Yep.
So I'm fairly relaxed trialing him. So yeah, Flair's going to be interesting. I do think I'll feel the pressure a bit more with Flair. It'll be fun though.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, so I'm not the only one out there with the walker.
But he's a little bit slower, which is nice. At least I can relax a little bit with him.
Yeah. Slower dogs are way easier to run.
And Sarah is a dream now. She's almost a month off 14, and she's like, we just stroll along and here's the odor. And she used to be a firecracker, but, it's nice just to, be a little bit more relaxed. She's still very excited about it, but at a slower pace.
Okay, so I still haven't quite worked out my own trialing plans and schedule for Nettle because, the thing with ANKC is there's so many trials and opportunities.
Yeah. So where do you find dates for ANKC? This is a question for me too.
There is, I believe there's a rough sort of document schedule on the Facebook page.
Okay. What's that Facebook page?
Dogs New South Wales.
Oh, yeah. Dogs New South Wales ANKC scent work. So it's a group page.
There is a group on Facebook that's where all of the trial schedules, etc., will be posted because it is still a growing sport. A lot of trials come up, even new ones. So I think that if you're on that page, you'll see trials as they become available.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, there's quite a lot available to you if you wish to trial an ANKC.
Yeah, I would very much encourage people to plan that out as well. And we have put an emphasis on planning out your ACSW trials in this sort of podcast. But I think that for ANKC, you should be planning out at least what elements and levels you want to enter and just be, I guess, we just need to be a little bit more mindful of it, I think, rather than just, that's on, I'll enter.
Yeah. Also, we haven't really touched on it, but the food distractors at Excellent really require thoughtful training. And if you are getting alerts on food, or if you are unable to read whether your dog is at food or at an odor, then you definitely need to take some time away from trialing and consider how to address that. Because continually putting a dog in that position is not going to serve you well in the long term.
I 100% agree with you. We see it a lot that it gets repeated and repeated, and it's depressing for the handlers, and it's lack of clarity for the dog. And I think that it's tough for a lot of people trialing at that level if they haven't done the correct training or maintained that training.
It's for sure something that needs to be maintained. Like some dogs, and it's super dog dependent. Obviously, every single dog has a different level of food drive. They've got different stuff that they're attracted to. And, the importance of odor in the presence of food will wax and wane depending on what's going on with your dog. So, yeah, have a training plan. And if you don't have any idea what to do, maybe try and find an instructor who has some sort of training plan for you.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested, it's more of a save the date, caninenosetime.com.au under the tab trials and events. Not all of them have been applied for yet, but I'm trying to keep that updated with all of the New South Wales ACSW events so that you can go on, pop them in your calendar and be able to make a plan for the year about what you're wanting to enter and create an appropriate training plan accordingly. So, yeah, if there are any other trial hosts out there in New South Wales that I haven't maybe got your prospective dates, just let me know and I'll put it on there. They'll be on the ACSW website once they're approved. So you can keep an eye on both of those websites.
I just want to say that I have actually finally found the file on the Dogs New South Wales ANKC Scentwork Facebook group. There is actually a 2025 Scentwork Trials calendar Excel sheet that you can look
at. Okay. And the easiest way to find that is under the tab files.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Well, all right. Is there anything else we've missed?
I have no idea because, as we mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm still in holiday mode. So hopefully we covered what we plan to. I mean, I still, to be honest, feel a bit fuzzy with my goals. I kind of know my vague goals, but
and that's totally okay. I think it's also important to note that your goals change throughout the year.
They do.
Nothing's set in stone, but if you don't have a plan, it doesn't happen, right? So at least I would encourage everyone to, check out the dates, have an idea of what you're wanting to trial in and what your goals for those trials, what things you want to have ticked off in your dog or in your handling. And the list is endless, whether it's handler nerves, leash handling skills, moving on from hides, a better understanding of reading your dog, odor movement challenges, like all of these little things are different at every different level. So make sure that you do know what the challenges are that are going to be presented at the particular level that you're going to be trialing at, and make sure that you've done the appropriate training before you enter the trial. Keyword, before.
Before, yeah.
But I hope, I think it's going to be a really good year for trialing. I know that we've got some really good goals at Canine Nose Time to really focus on the relationship between the handlers and the dogs, and maintaining that while trialing can often be challenging. And that is one of the things that we're really putting a focus on this year, is keeping that connection, maintaining that, that really good relationship we have with our dogs, and seeing that happiness and joy in them searching and not being afraid to call things, and, just really building on all of those skills. So, yeah. All right. Shall we call it there?
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks, Danielle. We will chat again soon.
We will.